Welcome to another episode of Cold Emails and Hot Takes. Today I have Michael on the pod. Michael, great to have you on. How are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm really excited to be here and to talk to you today. So I'm doing great. Thanks again for having me on.
Okay, great. Yeah, for the viewers listening, Michael is the founder of B2B Outbound and DFY Meetings, and he's booked well over 2,000 meetings between himself and his clients this year. So I'm sure he's going to drop some good nuggets and value today on the podcast. And yeah, Michael, you ready to reveal a couple of cold outreach secrets?
Let's do it.
All right, great. Yeah, before we jump into the cold email tactics, I want to take a step back and look a little bit at the bigger picture. Because on Twitter the other day, you mentioned that, and I quote, your agency will grow in accordance to how badly people want your offer. So let's talk about offers. How do you create an offer that people actually want?
Yeah, sure. And I think this is one thing that a lot of people get wrong when they're starting out, where they think that, they need just a perfect copy and deliverability to be perfect and everything to be perfect. In reality, if you have an offer people don't want or is incredibly competitive, you can make it work, but it's really forceful. Like our best clients have unique offers and our copy is nothing crazy for them. It's just people want to offer. And going into offer creation, I'm sure you've seen this. The thing I see that hurts people the most is saturated markets. And the way I think a lot of markets get saturated, talking to your audience here, is I think a lot of them are going to be kind of younger entrepreneurs, maybe in their 20s, right? So you have a lot of people take the same paths. They go through the same courses, same YouTube videos, and these videos suggest things like lead generation for realtors or Facebook ads for e-commerce. And what happens is you have so many people competing on the same thing, following the same paths. And although the documentation on what to do next is easy, the fact that that's so easily available just creates insane competition. So that's kind of the first idea that I consider when it comes to offer creation. And when I look at our best clients, the thing they have is an offer people want, but also an offer that has healthy barrier to entry. The best offers we look at our clients are not in an A to Z step course, or at least not in every A to Z course, and they're also not super clearly defined online. And I think that's kind of an interesting concept.
Okay. So creating unique offers that also have some type of barrier to entry for people to
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And the level of barrier to entry can vary, but just having some is so healthy. I mean, look at like a Facebook ads agency for e-commerce. I'm sure you've seen that it's super competitive. Lots of people are doing because there's a lot of great information on it. So when you're first starting out, you don't know, but it's super competitive. And there's a guide on how to do cold email for e-com Facebook ads and how to hire media buyers. But you're also competing against a whole massive amount of beginners. Where, for example, let's say if we talk about Facebook ads for B2B businesses, there's probably not as many courses on how to start an agency doing Facebook ads for B2B businesses, or as many tutorials on how to do it. Like that slight barrier to entry, just in there being less educational resources and blueprints, means alone there's going to be less competition and outreach. And you go a step farther, and there's some services that are kind of tricky to figure out. So the bigger the barrier to entry, the less competition. And if you combine that with an offer that people really want, which that's best found out by testing and validating interest, you can be onto a real winner.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's definitely something that people should keep in mind as they do their cold emailing, right? And no deliverability tactic really helps if your offer is not doesn't have the product market fit, or there's just too many people doing it. And all right, yeah, let's do a couple rapid fire questions, and after that we'll jump into some more open-ended topics. Just are you ready for a couple rapid fire cold email questions?
Yes, I am.
All right, great. And what are your favorite B2B data sources?
Okay, so where we're getting contacts from.
Yeah.
Cool. So one thing we like to do is when we get our data, we like to focus really heavily on segmentation. So rather than personalizing to every single prospect, we like to get people in groups. So, we use tools like Store Leads, D7 Lead Finder, Snob, Hunter, SalesQL, Apollo, but beyond the actual tool to get data, we like to group people into boxes that make them similar. For example, if we're targeting, let's say marketing agencies, we find all of them on one directory in one category, and we can reference in a personalized line for category and the fact we found them on a directory, or all of them in one location where you can reference that they're all in one location. So I can do a personalized line around a location. So, where we find people, we just look for where can we find them in a box, like altogether similar. This is often directories or like a blog post of top 100 marketing agencies for say TikTok ads, or, guests of a podcast even. If someone wanted to target people who were cold email specialists, they could scrape everyone who's been on your podcast, cold email them, and the first line could be, I listened to your podcast and I really found your interview inspiring, blah, 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 pitch, So we look at what similarities can we find when we're list building.
Okay, great. Yeah. And with the list building, something that I learned from you, like don't hesitate to just hire somebody to do it manually, right? Not everything has to be like 100% automated. You can just get a VA and, check out those directories, check out the blog posts, check that out, and they add the leads manually. That's a big one. And then it's also highly relevant, right? Like you said, like when you reach out to them in the first line, it'll pique their interest. Doesn't look spammy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite cold email subject lines?
So I think subject line is something that's like way overthought, because it's more like if you're getting a low open rate, it's probably your deliverability. So it's taking that out of the picture here. So if your deliverability is good, for subject lines, there's two things we don't want to do. One of them is make it sound like a newsletter. So not conversational, make it sound like a newsletter. We don't want to do that. Also misleading subject lines. I see these quite often, like I just bought your product, or problem with company name. Like, don't want to be misleading. My favorite ones are really basic. Just company name, just first name, idea for company, partnership opportunity for company, your name, X, their name, really simple stuff. One thing we do, it's a little bit different, is we'll put like 3 to 4 spaces in front of a subject line. So in certain email platforms, you have all your subject lines in a row and yours stands out a little bit. So we keep it pretty simple.
Okay, nice. That's a nice little hack there with the spacing, so it stands out more. That's a cool one. What's your favorite call to action in a cold email?
Yeah, so for call to action, when we run campaigns for clients, right, we're optimizing for book calls. So we focus on getting calls booked. However, if you're someone who's just starting out and you have a lot of time, video audits are a great way to get on calls, right? It's going to convert better. It's just loses scalability at some point. So if you're just starting out, offering a video audit or some type of audit in general will do quite well. But obviously that breaks at scale. So we just do really basic stuff. Like, is this something you'd be interested in talking about? If you're interested, I'll set up a time to talk. Are you available to talk Thursday? So just really simple call to actions, because if it offers something they want, they're naturally going to be interested in it. And one other thing we do is we never put like, if you're interested, book on my calendar here. But what we will do is we make the calendar link part of the email signature. And if someone's really interested, we're just going to see that link and they're going to book on it without you being pushy.
Great. What's your favorite type of follow-up messaging, or just follow-up messaging in general?
Yeah, so if we're targeting companies that are a little bit larger, so let's say 50 plus employees, which most of our clients are, email 2 is normally going to be asking for an appropriate contact at a company. So rather than just the normal bump message, like, who is this appropriate for? Because especially if you're targeting employees in a company, not owners, if it's not their business and not something that they're paid to do, they often won't answer. But if you ask them who's in charge of this, they'll give you a referral. Then you can message that referral and say, hey, Jen told me to email you, and it comes off a little bit warmer and it does really well. We normally only do about 4 emails long sequences, because we prefer to do more prospects and fewer follow-ups unless somebody has a really small total addressable market. In that case, we'll do more follow-ups. We're trying to maximize every prospect. Email 3, case study, if you have it. If not, like, really great resource. Email 4, we normally do another case study. We mentioned it's a final email. On that one, we normally link a calendar link as like a call to action. If you do want to talk, the links here.
Okay, great. So done with the rapid fire questions. Let's move into some more open-ended questions. What would you say are some beginner mistakes when doing cold outreach and scaling an agency? What kind of things do you see people doing wrong out there?
The number one thing, coming back to offers, is they think there's an issue with their copy or some magical trick for missing when people just don't want their offer. So that it's not when to give up, but it's when to switch what you're doing. And also from the first point, having that reference point that you can't be exactly the same as everyone else. For example, I'm gonna pick on Facebook ads for e-commerce. I'm sure you've seen this too. People have the same funnels, the same offer, the same guarantee, the same copy, same positioning, targeting the same people, right? So that the offer is really the main thing. I mean, in terms of beginner mistakes, a lot of times people don't reach out to enough people. They think they can reach out to 500 people a month, or I often see like silly issues of like deliverability. But beyond all that, it's just, do people want your offer?
Okay, got it. So let's say someone, has their offer dialed in, they know they have product market fit, they're more like in their intermediate stage. What are some of the mistakes that intermediate people do when doing cold outreach, cold email specifically?
A lot of it I see is obsessing over perfection as opposed to volume. So it's always unique for each business. For example, if you're somebody who has a massive market you reach out to, let's say 30, 40,000 people, I see a lot of people worried about getting their booked meeting rate from say 1 out of 150 to 1 out of 100, where that difficulty of doing that is much more than just doubling the amount of people you reach out to. So I think a lot of times it comes down to volume. Because if you have something that's already working, you probably know the basic terms of like focus on the prospect, not for yourself, pitch the meeting, not the service, relevant case studies. For past the basics, I think a lot of people get obsessed on the stats, and you also want to have proper tracking, right? Like we know roughly what it costs us to get a client from cold email, and we know our lifetime value. So if those two numbers in mind, it makes it really easy to make decisions on what volume we need to hit our financial goals, and also how to make sure we're profitable.
Okay, got it. And what would you say is the best way to turn a positive reply into a meeting? So when someone raises their hand, says, "Hey, I'm interested," how do you turn them into a booked meeting? What's your inbox management process? What does that look like?
Yeah, sure. So on a tech side, we use Close. Close is great because you can track people through different stages. It's really simple to use. And in terms of appointment setting, some of the things I see people do wrong that I would recommend changing is, one of them is I see people putting a lot of effort into their copy, but not for appointment setting. We do entirely personalized appointment setting. We have guidelines we follow, but your appointment setting should be completely personalized. I mean, one of the main things is energy matching. I see a lot of people, they respond with, "Thank you for your reply. Here's a link to my calendar. Let's talk." It's like, no, if your prospect's sending you exclamation marks, smiley faces, so excited, match that. If they're talking very formal business tone, match that. So energy matching is huge. Another thing I see is when people ask questions, I see a lot of times those questions being avoided by sending a calendar, like, "I'll tell you on the call." It doesn't convert in really complex industries, or I should say complex, like bigger businesses. Like, ask the questions, they answer. Don't always just push for the call right away. It's okay to have a conversation. And the third thing I would say is, we found that saying like, "book on my calendar," kind of a turnoff to people, as opposed to saying like, "Do you have a calendar I can book on? Or would you like to schedule time manually?" And then maybe as a PS, like, "PS, if it's easier, you could also book on mine." So we're like very gentle and polite with scheduling the call, as opposed to being pushy towards the calendar.
Okay, interesting. So you give them the free options inside of that email: manual, book on their meeting link.
Yeah.
They can book on your link. Okay, great. And so how do you talk a little bit more about the personalization in the appointment setting? How do you personalize that approach? Like, I definitely agree, like people should put more effort into replying to those leads, but how do you personalize that message, or what do you do there?
Yeah, sure. So one thing we'll do is completely personalized lines as a PS. So if you told me, you're interested in my cold email service, I'd say, "Thanks for the reply. Really happy to hear from you. I think based off working with companies like X, Y, and Z, your prospects who reach out to are going to be really impressed and excited to talk to you. Do you have a calendar I can book on? Or if not, feel free to let me know a time that works for you, or check out my Calendly for availability. PS, love the last tweet, reference to tweet." So we have like a personalization there, for example, about like why this is going to work for them, hitting on ego a little bit, like, "You've worked with great companies." And then we have a PS showing we did a little bit of research. You're only going to have so many positive responses. You want to put as much energy into them as you can. And beyond that, it's follow-ups too. Like, we follow up respectfully, but relentlessly.
Okay, great. What do those follow-ups look like once someone's interested? I imagine they're a little bit different than the cold follow-ups. How do you bump that message up?
Yeah, so one thing I would say not to do is just to keep doing the bump. Can we talk?
Yeah,
Can we
that's
talk?
annoying.
Can we talk? So the first one we do is something like, hey, is this still something you're interested in talking about? And normally we say like, hey, is getting more sales calls on the calendar still something you're interested in talking about? We'll also personalize around holidays. Like for example, we're going Thanksgiving tomorrow. If someone replied, hey, sure you're busy with the family, it's Thanksgiving, would it be better to loop around next week? So we'll reference a holiday. If we have a case study that's very similar to their business, at some point might follow up and say, hey, I know we haven't spoken in a while. However, we just had great results of a company really similar. Their name is company name. We're able to do this for them because of XYZ specific elements of your business. I think the same would work opposed to talking. So we're like, again, personalizing there. Even down to like YouTube videos. If we have a new YouTube video that matches them, we'll include a YouTube video. In addition to this, I'm always adding them on LinkedIn, adding them on Twitter, liking their content on Instagram, like not messaging them on every platform, please talk to me, but rather just trying to get them to follow me back because I'm posting content and the content will nurture them.
Okay, interesting one. I haven't heard that before. Yeah, like also adding them on the socials and kind of engaging with the content, staying top of mind. And yeah, that's a great one. Awesome. And so once you have them, you get them to book the meeting and they're on your calendar. How do you go from meeting to turning them into a client? What does that process look like? Can you give some pointers?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am not a sales coach. So the advice I'm going to give here is going to be less on like sales tactics, more on how do you manage that contact? Because I'm not the best at explaining sales. I'm good at sales, I'm not good at explaining it. So some things we do outside of like specific sales tactics, one of them is before your call, we want to send them an email, like to make sure we're going to show up. So like a follow-up email to make sure we're going to show up, increasing the reply rate. What we normally do is we do is tastefully. We send them an email. It's like, hey, super excited for our call today. We'll add a little bit of personalization. By the way, if you want to check out before our time, here's some case studies and here's a couple of YouTube videos I think you might enjoy. So we're building trust. We're reminding you on the meeting and also adding personalization. We also do this with text. So if we have a prospect who I'm extremely excited about, like a really great one, I'll send them a personalized text message beforehand. If it's just a normal prospect, we have an automatic text sequence that sends them YouTube videos, sends them testimonials, and just tries to build some of that confidence before a call. So that's going to increase your show up rate and also then confidence on the call. Higher confidence on the call for them, with you, easier to close, higher show up rate, more deals potentially to close. And then after the call, I think a lot of people, this is a really funny thing that we've seen. They send a proposal over email, but they don't consider that the proposal has so many spam words and they're using their company email that's not an outreach email that's not warmed up, and it goes to spam with the proposal. So we use a warmed up email, warmed up and instantly, to send our proposals through. And we also do really unique proposals. So our website, dfymeetings.com. If you go through our sales process, we send you a proposal, it'll be like dfymeetings.com/instantly. And we have a personalized web page that has your company name, your name, specific notes on our call, and a 3 to 5 minute video going through all the main points, FAQ questions, YouTube videos, invoice link, all the next steps laid out clearly. And having that adds so much professionalism, confidence in your ability, and it's helped us a lot in terms of increasing our close rate outside of just the sales call itself.
Okay, great. Yeah, going that extra mile like makes huge difference. Great to see how you are doing it. One technicality, like how do you get their phone number? Like, do you have that just as a field in the Calendly form, or like how do you go about like also being able to text them? Like, where do you grab that info from?
Calendly form, and I'll make a note here. We have an automatic one for most prospects, but if I'm super excited, I do it personalized. And when I do it personalized, if I can get them on WhatsApp, it always does better because no one does like WhatsApp pre-call meeting messages.
Yeah. Okay, sweet. And okay, so let's say, someone has an agency, they currently have 2 to 3 clients, they're managing those 2 to 3 clients. How do you go from that to getting to 10 plus clients, to really like, scaling up the agency to 10 plus clients? How do you go from point A to point B?
Sure. So one thing that I think is good to say here is like outreach is fantastic. And yes, the simple answer is more outreach. But if your retention sucks, then it's like if you want to really scale, you need to have good retention because longer retention, higher average customer value, and the higher average customer value, the more money you can spend on outreach and still be really profitable. So first thing is, what is your retention, right? If your retention is under 3 months, like you don't have an outreach problem, you have a retention problem. That means that either your service isn't good, it means maybe you're communicating poorly with clients, maybe you're choosing bad clients, maybe the person who's actually doing the delivery of a service, whether it be yourself or a contractor or employee, they're doing bad. So if retention's an issue, like it's just an ongoing game of get clients, drop clients, get clients, drop clients. Now, once you have that retention fixed, with cold email, when you do have something that's working, it's a pretty simple process of if my market's big enough, let's add more volume. And if your market's not big enough, then can you go after a different country? Can you add in a different sector and increase volume? I mean, obviously there's ongoing testing, but for the most part, I see people just get scared of really high volume. For example, we're doing another big push in sales on January. We have 100 email addresses warming up for that. Like we have something that works. We're just going to beat the living hell out of it.
Interesting. You touched on going into other countries, right? So majority of people are targeting the US or just English-speaking countries in general. Can you talk a little bit more about like how you go about targeting other countries that are non-English speaking? Like what's kind of the play there?
Sure. So we don't do any cold email campaigns outside of one client and that's just like a special circumstance that isn't targeting in English. However, a lot of people think that the only countries that exist are UK, US, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. But let's say, for example, the rest of Europe, you can filter on tools like store leads, English stores in those countries, and there's plenty. Another example, there's tons of e-commerce brands, let's say e-commerce brands in China that have warehouses in the United States, but they're based in China. If you went on a tool like Store Leads, which people who don't know what it is, it's an e-commerce filtering tool to find stores. And you plug in English text on website, e-commerce stores in China, you'll find a bunch of great brands that have warehouses in the United States that are based in China. Same thing with the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Oman, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, South Africa, Panama, because people have companies in Panama because they're there to save taxes. Like you just got to get a bit creative because most people just confine themselves. And when you hop out of those countries, the competition just drops because people aren't reaching out to them.
That's a great one. You have to think about outside the box a little bit, and all the ones that you mentioned there: Singapore, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Panama. Like, I mean, usually people don't think about them right away, but everybody speaks English there, so and they have money. So those are a bunch of good markets. And yeah, so you would increase the volume basically. Like if you want to go, I mean, you focus on retention first, make sure you're able to deliver good service, people stay with you, and after that increasing the volume and also going into other countries would be the main thing, to go from 2 to 3 clients to 10+ clients. Or
yeah, I would say other countries if your market's small, right? If you have a big market, you might just be able to stay in the United States forever. But yeah, for a lot of people, like with cold email, I know that's an underwhelming, not sexy answer, but in reality, it's like if something's working and it's profitable, you need to do more of it. Obviously, you're going to get better along the way because you have more data, and the more people you reach out to, the faster you get data. But a lot of times it's just doing more.
Yeah. And so a little bit more like entrepreneur related question, right? You've been in the entrepreneurial game for a long time. You have a lot of experience. If you could go back in time, meet your younger self, what would you tell him? Like what kind of lessons would you give him on his way as he's growing all these companies and scaling the companies?
So if I go back and talk to myself, I think the first thing would be focus. I've struggled a lot with focus. I think a lot of people have shiny object syndrome when they're starting businesses. I had a lot of businesses that did okay when I started out, which I was, for some context, I'm 22. I started a business in 15, and I did pretty good right away. Not like good in terms of making tons of money, but like I had an income at 15 from a business, which is cool. but focuses. I was trying to do too many things. I was trying to do at one point an agency, which had a couple clients, a dropshipping store, which had some sales, and a vending machine business, which I had some vending machines. And at the same time, I was trying to do like a reselling business, reselling clothing. And the thing that was frustrating for me was all of the things I did worked a little bit, enough that like it was hard to cut them, right? It's hard to cut something when you're making money from it, even if it's not much. And it took for me like growing from, a few thousand a month to tens of thousands to and beyond. It took like narrowing down focus, and that's consistently been a struggle of mine. Even to this day, I have a Notion doc called list of businesses I'm not allowed to start, so I can like put my ideas in it, and it has over 100 business ideas. Because that's just like my struggle. So focus being number one. Number two probably would be outreach. Like I've been doing outreach for an entire time, but I used to do the thing where you obsess over the numbers and not the volume. And if I could go back and tell myself to focus more on volume of outreach, that would have helped too. But I was doing cold emails back in 2015. I didn't know what a cold email was, but I'd find companies I liked and just send them emails and they would respond.
Okay, nice. And as a last question, I'm always curious to hear, what are some cold email strategies that you just recently discovered, but not a lot of people know about yet? If you're willing to share, of course.
I'm going to give 3. Is that okay?
Yeah, 3 is perfect.
Okay. First one is specific for December. So in December, people do not generally hire too much for agencies. Like they don't want new projects normally. Again, this is not everybody. It's just generally speaking. So one thing we're doing is, especially in December, we're doing what we call job board campaigns. Let's say that you offer sales training, that's your service. So we would go on a job board and look for companies that are hiring sales managers because they're saying we need someone to help with sales. And we would specifically cold email those companies, not mentioning the job post, but pitching sales training because they're in a market for it. Everybody else is saying, let's wait till January. If you're putting a job post out in December, you probably want to hire in December. And this can apply for everything. If you offer, let's say that you do, I don't know, graphic design. You look for people hiring graphic designers and you cold email those companies because they're hiring graphic designers. So those really high intent prospects, especially in like all year round, but especially in a time when our people aren't hiring, are a gold mine. That's number one.
Right. Interesting.
Number 2 is specific for e-commerce. I know a lot of people have e-commerce services, and that's targeting Chinese stores in China with warehouses in the United States. They get skipped over. There's so many brands where they're successful in China. They work with an agency and they have like a sister brand or like US facing brand. It's still based out of China, but the warehouse in the United States and their products are sold to the US market. And for most people, where we're getting their leads off tools that filter by country, they're completely skipping over these. And there's like 30, 40,000 good ones that just aren't getting emailed as much. So that's another one we're taking advantage of. And for the third one, do you want to be specific to cold email or could it be like general prospecting?
General prospecting is cool too. Yeah.
The third one, which is really underrated and I would say a bit thought negatively about, is Upwork. Like people have the connotation that all people on Upwork are hiring cheap prices or just like cheap prospects. And I think the where place that thought comes from is on Upwork, you can't do any filtering. The job post might be need help with ads or need help with graphic design or need a website made. So you can't actually tell if a prospect's serious, what their budget or anything is until the sales call. And yes, that's a little bit frustrating, but we've been getting so much good work on Upwork. And another thing to note is like volume. We apply to every relevant job everywhere in the world, every single day on Upwork. So we're applying to hundreds of jobs per week, sometimes close to 1,000 per month. And we get consistent clients from it. And again, there are a lot of tire kickers. People have low budgets, but like we signed a client who does $20 million a year from Upwork. His job post, need help with cold email. You have no way of knowing to get in the call. So again, Upwork's great for December too, because again, people have lower intent to hire in December or do new projects. But we're putting a job on Upwork, they have high intent. So we got 2 intent ideas and 1 unique targeting idea. Those are 3 things that we've recently been doing a lot more of and are really excited about.
Okay, great, exciting. Awesome, Michael. That was the last question. It was really great to have you on the show. You drew up so much value. I'm going to have to rewatch this episode and really take some notes, jot down some notes. For the viewers listening who want to learn more, where should they go? Where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look up Michael Gardiner, I'm sure my name will be on here somewhere. I'm on YouTube. I post exactly what we're doing on YouTube. I'm on Instagram, Twitter. If you find one, you can find others. And if you did want to work together, dfymeetings.com is my agency where we manage campaigns for our clients. Or if you're looking for help in terms of how to do this in-house, we have another business with a training program called b2boutbound.io.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'll add all these links in the description so people can find you. And yeah, for the viewers listening, like Michael is the real deal. Like I don't know a lot of people who were able to book over 2,000 meetings this year, and we also talk quite a lot about cold email, and you really know your stuff. So go check out Michael, whether you want to do it by yourself with the B2B outbound.io or just have someone manage your campaigns. You can go check that out. And Michael, thanks again for your time. And yeah. Have a good one. It was great to chat.
Absolutely. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thanks.